Hey friends, my name is Steven and we're going to talk about woodcut block prints. Woodcuts have been around for a super long time. They're an awesome technique because they're so direct, they're so simple, and they're so versatile. We could do a lot of things with this technology. It's super simple, meaning that it kind of is what it sounds like. We're going to take some wood and we're going to make some marks on it with some tools, and then we're going to use that to print onto another thing. In this case, paper. It could be cloth, it could be wood, it could be metal, it could be lots of things. So it's super direct. The materials, I have some wood here that's kind of an example of different species that you might come into contact with that's kind of historical in character. It's always been traditionally solid wood, but that's probably because plywood, which is what this is an offcut. Plywood is a pretty new technology in the grand scheme of things. This works for us. We're not going to use this today, but it has some cool things about it. It's really stable, it's really flat, it's easy to source, and it's easy to cut up and work with. It does have some glue lines in here, which are kind of a bummer to carve down through, but we won't worry about that now. We're going to use solid wood just because we're cool, man. And the cool kids did that. This is poplar. These are all three of the same. These two, you notice, are not the same color. I painted these black so that we'll be able to see, for instance, the drawing that I made on there. That gives us sometimes a better surface to see our marks. This direct drawing we're going to use that to carve around. So that's going to dictate our shape. But this one I left plain just so we can get an idea of the wood surface. It's solid wood. That means it has a grain structure. The tree grew this way, and we can see that in the grain lines right there. They're a little bit different from these, but it's still growing up. It's going to be important to remember that, because if we cut across those grain fibers, or across them or with them, it's going to give us a different experience. It's going to be a different cut. It's going to be a different look. We're going to want to know. This is the end grain, and this is much different from the side grain. We won't worry about this now, but there's some cool examples of people utilizing this end grain to do some really especially intricate and detailed work. So that's kind of a neat thing. Here we'll talk about the tools, gouges of different sorts, and a bench hook. This bench hook is pretty important. It's going to allow us to work this way, for instance, and keep all of our appendages and body bits on this side of the cutting tool. This is a terrible idea, for instance, to hold this and to carve towards myself. Don't do that. Instead, we want to keep all of our body behind the tool. Here I'm going to show you just a few of these tools. There's tons of gouges to pick from. They all have slightly different profiles to give you a slightly different cut, but you don't really need that many. I'm going to show you just a couple. This one we're going to use a lot. If you look right there, maybe I can get this in the light so you can see that profile. It's a V gouge. So this is going to give us a fine, determined line, a small one. And I'm going to use this to outline my shapes. This does a similar thing. This is a skew chisel. Notice it has a leading edge that pokes out further than the bottom. And we're going to have names for those. This is the toe, this is the heel. I'm mostly going to use the heel for this. So keep in mind that how you use these tools matters a lot. And then we're going to have different types of gouges. For instance, they're going to have different sweeps. That's the curvature of this bottom thing. But these are going to allow us to remove lots of material They might also leave different marks that we might want to leave in for the printmaking process, leave those marks in. So in any event, I want to show you tell you very importantly, there are just a couple safety things we need to pay attention to. I already mentioned before we're going to use something to keep our whole body behind the cutting edge. Everything is back here. If our hand gets out in front like this, if there's any part of our body in front of this, it's in danger and we need to stop. So for this, for our purposes, we are always going to be on this side and our force is going to be going away. The other thing that's crucially important is the sharpness of these tools. A dull tool is always a dangerous tool. A dull tool is a dangerous tool. Sometimes that's a little bit counterintuitive. I think sharper it is, the more it's going to cut us. The sharper it is, the more control we have over it. If you have a dull tool, stop using it, sharpen it, or get someone to sharpen it. Because that's not only going to do bad work, but it's going to leave a lot of scars in our hands, which is a bummer. So with that in mind, I'm going to carve this block, and I'm not going to talk much about it, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to outline this first with my V-gouge. I'm going to remove this material, and then I'm going to put some carves and some marks in here. And this is going to be a simple carve, but I think it's going to do some cool dynamic things as I move it around. With a repeat pattern at the end of this. So we'll see that as well. So, with no further hesitation, I'm going to carve this up.